Be advised, suspect is armed and considered extremely dangerous.
Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio host, and nationally recognized safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Join us each week as we discuss the best and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth will keep you safe.
Hey everybody, it is your good friend Dr. David Perrodin from down here in the historic North Star Recording Studio, wishing you well. Just a short show. I don't have the full mic set up, and kind of it's I've got the flipped image in the back, so um, but if I mess with this, then it kind of interferes with some of my other software. But outside of that, glad to be here. Hey, Spambot Fodder, good to see you. Um, just wanted to give everybody an update. I have hair here. I had a haircut today. Um, I am wrapping up some consulting, so things have been going well. Things have been going busy. It's been a cold spring here. Only had one bike ride so far this year, but wanted to just touch base. I don't know if anyone out there what your perceptions are, but we, I think, are heading toward some very interesting times with the debt ceiling, I think, for one, and then this generative AI. And I think we are in for some real turbulence as a society within the next 30 to 90 days. So something I probably haven't sensed as overtly as right now. So I think that is it's pretty significant. I would be surprised if there's a resolution to this debt ceiling anytime soon. I do think it will be resolved, but right, is there a consideration of a downgrade of U.S. Debt by Moody's? What happens? Inflation seems to be just kind of out of control. I'm also seeing, as AI and Chat, GPT moves forward. Um, People aren't responding to that. They're not reacting. So in the school setting, kind of the venue I operate in, looking with school administrators, it's pretty wild. It's moving quickly, and there isn't policy for it. There isn't training for it. How do you identify deep fakes right in a school? How might you anticipate counter chat GPT generating reports and projects for students? And I guess you could just copy it, put it back into chat GPT and say, did you create this? Um, but these are things which I I guess I would think there would be committees formed on, how are we going to address if there's a deep fake that comes out of a staff or student member, right, allegedly saying something that violates code of conduct. Um, so what do we do with that? And, like, it's crickets. So really pretty fascinating. So it is Misty Mrs. Wayne. It's Ron Wayne. So yeah, this is just a short one tonight. I will now. Consulting wraps up for me in 2 weeks. Actually, 2 weeks from today, and then I've got about 10, not 10 weeks, maybe about 8 week break, and then I'll actually bring back some formal formal shows with the proper lighting and do a blog post, not a Chat GPT generated post, but something. So yeah, I don't have the camera framed in kind of correctly here because if I mess with this, so my consulting is all done here in the studio. So then it would mess with every. I'd have to reset that, and it really is a pain to have to do that. So everything is. But the office is going to be torn down in mid-June because the floor that was put in, the hardwood floor, has some buckling, and it's a warranty issue, so they're going to come in and replace the floor down here. So, but in order to do that, I have to disassemble the studio and this 400-pound desk and all of the electronics hooked up on it. So, um, but but yeah. So anyway, did I ever pick up the ultimate handheld? This is Joe. I didn't, and I'm glad that you put that out there because I have to do this. I'm Joe, just to give you an idea, because it's pretty funny you brought this up. Uh, my hand my Black& Decker hand vac, right? The thing is, I mean, it's really done a great job for like 15 years, but it doesn't even stay together anymore when I use it. So, like, I have to hold the the container part that all of the debris goes in to the vacuum part. Otherwise, they separate. They no longer clasp together. So when I'm using this thing, like, and you can't just tape it because when you're done, you have to turn it around and open it up. So it's this really weird kind of way that so it doesn't make any sense at all, right? And it's not like this is cost prohibitive. Like, oh my goodness, I can't buy this thing. It's pretty crazy. Actually, I'm gonna put this over on another. Um, so so Joe, just a second. Let me copy that. So here's Joe's post. Um, so 20 volt. This is one of those things that absolutely makes sense because I would use it in my garage and um, this is like I use this multiple times a week. So um, yeah, there you go. So I see what you're saying. Whoa! Like they've got one here with a lot of attachments. Now, how big is that? Is it handheld, right? It says handheld. I mean, it looks pretty big though. So you can fit that pretty easily into a car, like between the seats and under the seat. Because that was a plus of the Black& Decker, is it wasn't very big, and it had this little extension out the front, so you could, um, it could go in a lot of places. So, yeah, as long as it's not big. Um, so if you have it, like if you can share, like, oh, it's the size of a I don't know, loaf of bread, or it's smaller than that, or whatever. But um, yeah, I have to do something. So it's one fast stack. Hey, buddy, shout out to our good friend there in Canada. So good to see you. Yeah, so cleaning cars, that's going to be one of the main purposes for this thing. So that and the steps, and then it is kind of my workshop area when I don't want to bring out the wet dry vac and all of that stuff. So, um, but I like to keep our cars pretty clean. So, well, it's good to see everybody here. So it's a dustbuster on. uh, wow. I also need to get so the 20-volt chainsaw. I need to pick up a small chainsaw. So you probably saw the fall episode when I went out the forest in back of us. Now there's a bear out there. So the city let us know that there's a bear they've been tracking. It's wandering around. So like literally like right at the end of our property goes right up against the woods there. So um, that's kind of new. But I need a small chainsaw because I go back in the woods and that's where I get all my kindling. So I cut all the stuff up by hand, but that's I'm I that is growing a little old. So, and I don't, of course I'm going to fire up a I don't need a big chainsaw because I'm only taking, you know, inch and a half and smaller pieces down, but I need a small chainsaw. Because I cut up my own boxes of kindling. So, and the newspaper here in my town was 5 days a week, and then now they're going to be 3 days a week in print, and then I guess the other days they'll be in online, right? So you get your subscription, you go online. But the thing is, like, who's going to really do that? So it's pretty much saying the newspapers that's the end, So, um, but the point is, like, I burn the newspaper to start my fires. Now I've got to kind of come up with a different plan for that. So yeah, all of these things. And the newspaper had changed quite a bit. Like it was mostly all these national headlines, and of course it's a day late, and not covering the local stuff, didn't have the reporters. So just kind of a sad thing. I think it's a sad thing too for um, things that are happening in the community, right? And the school coverage and stuff like that really just kind of vanishes. And we're not a small community. I mean, we're like 10,000, which is small, right? But I grew up in a community of 8,000. So, but anyway, hey, I have to, I put it over here on another screen, this DeWalt wet dry vac. So it'd be a good gift for me on Father's Day. And I got this thing called the Kangaroo. It is a spring-loaded 33-gallon sack. So it folds down into like the size of a garbage can lid, and it's made out of this like rip stop fabric. And then you guys probably know what I'm talking about. You put like leaves in it, and debris from the yard is what it's made for. It's for yard stuff. It's not meant for like down in a wood shop or something. But um, you know, I had wanted one forever, and right again, what is it, like $23? And I finally got one a couple weeks ago, and it's perfect because going around picking up stuff in the yard before I mow and take this thing around, and then just folds up, and it has a couple little clamps on the side. But yeah, the Kangaroo. So so hey, hope everybody's doing well, and good to see all of you. So let me. Um, you already invested in the. I have. Jeez, I do have a DeWalt. Oh yeah, so you're saying get the attachment. Okay. Oh, did I get the rolling seat? Not yet. So I've got the catalog over there. Um, no, I didn't do it yet. I haven't hit that season yet. I mean, it was 47 degrees yesterday, so like, it's not detailing season, and my garage isn't big enough to detail in. So I love detailing in summer, but it's not summer here yet. So, but yeah, now that I have that extra concrete pad, which made it through winter perfect, no cracks, and it worked. It did what I needed it to do, so I could swing the vehicle out in winter, and so people could get out of that side of the car. And now in I can park it over there and have plenty of room, like when I'm mowing too, to get mower and weed whacker and everything in and out of the garage. Like it's just perfect. Like such a smart project. And I remember last October when I was talking to the concrete guy, and I was like, "Yeah, I've been thinking about doing this." And he had like this open window in his schedule, like the upcoming week. And he's a local dude, and a generational, concrete guy. And he's like, "Well, if I can be here and we can like do this next week." And I'm like, "Let's make it happen." So, and it did. It looks awesome. It's super. And I had it all like planned out for like years. Like I had the schematic and had everything ready to go. So, um, and then I did that concrete curbing around the landscaping around the rocks, and that looks beautiful too. Had that done last summer and made it through the winter. Yeah, that's always the thing. Like in Wisconsin, is winter. How are things going to make it through winter if they're concrete related? But so just toss a few dollars worth of coins in the car, tell the neighborhood kids if they can keep the cash. Holy smokes! Yeah. My neighborhood, the kids would probably take the car. So, wow. Um, let's see. Wow. I used the DeWalt 20 for 3 hours, ran through 4 uh, batteries. Wow. Holy smokes. Hey, it's our good friend Z. Hey, buddy. So yeah, just making an appearance here. Um, so I got a haircut today, and this looks much better, but I had a hat on before and stuff like that, and I just wanted to come on. I had just got done doing some paperwork tonight, I'm consulting, and my consulting wraps up in 2 weeks, and then I'll start up again in fall. So it's been going really good, but really busy. But and then this office gets a tear down in the middle of June when they replace the floor, which was just put in, but there was some buckling. It's a warranty issue, and I like the floor. So it's our friend Sunflowers. Hey, um, so curious about concrete curbing. I'd like to isolate my property from. So, Joe, I absolutely love it. Now we had a company come in, and this guy's like my age, and he's been doing this since he graduated high school. So, like, apparently, like I've heard stories where this doesn't turn out for people. It turned out awesome for us. Now, with that said, uh, you can't put you can't drive over this stuff, right? Because you destroy it. It's not supported underneath, and it's cosmetic, and um, so it does everything I need it to do. Would you be able to control storm water? I don't know. I don't know if it would do that. So you'd probably have to go with a little more aggressive concrete and probably dig down. This stuff only goes down in like maybe 2 inches. Um, so, but it looks absolutely awesome. It is so much better to mow than having that little plastic. And the squirrels would always chew the plastic up anyway, and the stones would fall out. And uh, so, just thrilled. I'm a car cleaning fanatic. So am I. Ron. I will take an entire day to detail out a car. Now you might be like, well, I'll take a week. So, but um, I love detailing cars, especially 80 degrees plus and sunny in summer. Now, granted, we have one vehicle's black, so that one is a little trickier to detail out in summer because of the heat, right? So you don't. Um, but I have a big tree in the front, so I can kind of move it over onto the grass, and you know, you just got to know what you're doing, right? You just like do panels at a time and kind of work your way around. But um, when I was growing up and I had my Plymouth Duster, I would I would work like a couple days detailing that outward, just a glass shine. And I had the raised Kelly racing tires, and then I would clean the white letters, so Kelly Racing. And oh man, just yeah. It's cathartic, right? And I used to always have like the radio on. Now I don't have anything on. I just like being out there. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I am big time looking forward to detailing out the vehicles. So that's where, if I lived in a warmer climate, I would do that just year round. Or if I had a garage that was bigger and heated, I would do that. Um, my parents, their house, they have a garage which you could put 5 vehicles in. It was built originally as a drying garage for ginseng, which is a exported crop. And when they built it 30 years ago, they had this garage with a big Resnor heater in it, and then the drains uh, and it hot and cold water out there. So you can fully wash a vehicle. In my garage, you can't do that; it's not big enough. But anyway, there we are. So I was considering trenching, laying gravel, and finishing the top curving machine. Yeah, I mean, give it a try, right? I mean, th- thankfully, Joe, I live on the top of a sandy hill in town here, right? So, um, and I have a basement where I'm at right now. We never get water down here because we're on top of a sandy hill. Like from where I'm at, like 3 houses down, like that's 100-foot drop easily. So, um, and we don't have erosion because we're kind of at the peak. But so I don't have to deal with any of that, or water table stuff, right? Because of where I'm located. So it's really a blessing, because the house I grew up in, the basement flooded when I was a kid often. And when you talk flood, like flood. Um, and oh my God, that was just gross and horrible. And it was a bad deal, man. Um, but yeah, I think yeah, gravel and just trying to get the water to move. So yeah, I don't know. I'll just say like the curbing stuff, I love it. I absolutely think it's awesome. Um, so let's see here. Ron Wayne is saying, I'm around a half day or longer detailing. Yeah. Love detailing. Oh God. So oh jeez. I thought here it was moving down. It's Barnaby Sanchez. He must realize that the super chats are on. Look at this here. So look at the super chats are the super chats are on. So Barnaby Sanchez. Um, I waxed my 1990 Volkswagen Golf. A friend of mine had a 90 Golf, um, 5-speed back in '94. So we took it on spring break to Little Rock, Arkansas. Um, so yeah. Um, so I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I don't know if concerned is the word, but the whole the whole debt ceiling, economy, inflation type thing, I think is very omnibus, right? It's um, so first of all, let me say I think there will be some agreement right on the debt ceiling, um, but I also think this could be the time where there's this political standoff, right? Um, and we also have more debt than gross domestic product for the first time during this happening, and just some other things. But um, there's starting to be weird things in the treasury market. So I'm a big treasuries guy. When I say that, like, that's a big interest area of mine. Not that I have like a lot of money in treasuries, um, but so treasury bills are 52 weeks or shorter, and you can buy those at Treasury Direct. And you just go in and they have the auctions, and right now, between 5 and 6%. And then Treasury Note is 1 year all the way out to 30 years, that you could buy, like 1, 3, 5, sometimes 7, 10. Now there's the 20. Um, and those pay you interest, and the bills pay you when they mature. And the money just goes right back into whatever account you set up. Pretty easy to use. Um, but the thing is, the the treasury, the short-term treasuries, like 4 weeks, 8 weeks, stuff like that, are starting to spike, and like stuff I've never seen, where like 6+% on a short-term note, when a year ago 1%, 2 years ago a 0.5%, you know, that suddenly you're seeing this. And so what is basically saying is no one wants to hold debt that might mature while there's a government standoff on the debt ceiling, right? No one wants to hold something that's going to mature in June or early July, um, as a foreign country or business or any of that. So they're having to pay more interest. But like I'm seeing that also in banks, credit unions, the same thing, this kind of inverted curve. Usually they would pay you more to keep the longer term bills, right? To keep your money tied up. And now they're paying you a lot more for the shorter term stuff. Um, and I'm looking at this, and I've started to talk to some other people who kind of follow this stuff like I do, and we've started to speculate. And I said, what would it take to have these short-term treasury notes that any of us could buy, right? Um, let's say a 12-week note goes to 10%, or a 26-week note goes to 10% or 12% or 15%. Because there's a government shutdown June 1st, and there's a standoff, and it's just panic, right? And I said, I don't think it's off the table, because what we're seeing right now is this, because if you take like 6% over a percent a year ago, multiples, it's how many, like 1,000 times greater, right? In the last 20 months, these interest rates. So, um, so it's an opportunity to lock in with some risk, but it also, I think, really shows um, s- how unstable things are. Um, and I, I don't, like I said, I'm not the only one who's making these observations in kind of the treasury sphere, and I think it's really dangerous. I don't know. Some of you might remember, like 15 years ago, Moody's downgraded the U.S. debt. I think that could happen again. Um, I don't know where the long-term game is on this, like where are things in 3 years, where are things in 5 years. Like, I think the 2024 election will be big, but like right now, inflation, um, and all of you, right? And car insurance, house insurance, just going crazy. And just pretty much anything, right, is these purchases are just, it's wild. But I but I'm seeing this treasury market, and I'm looking and saying, I've never seen this before. Um, so let's go over here. So it is. Hey, it's all Pro Lemonton, our good friend in the house. So look at this guy. I've only biked once, so part of that's the weather's been bad. It's going to be rainy and cold tomorrow. Um, the other part is I've been busy, which isn't a good excuse. But I did get in one awesome bike ride when it was like 84, like April 12th or something. And by the way, I limed my lawn the next day when it was still in the 80s, which turned out to be great because now my lawn is the greenest in the neighborhood. But it's our good friend Mike McClune in the house. So Z is saying it's just low humidity here, so I'm fine. They all own assets. No one wants to hold dollars. See, you're right, right? So um, that's the thing, and you know, w- and even with states accepting some precious metals for currency transactions, and are you going to start like valuing like, well, we have this much state land, so this is like an asset. But I don't know if it would get that split up, but it is really messed up right now, and um, I think now the there's a very high chance of political grandstanding, and I don't know. Um, so it's just wow. Um, so yeah, so that's been strange for me to watch this. So it's created some opportunities in some of the fixed investment things because some rates are at like 15-year highs. But it is really weird to see this going on. Um, the other thing I'm I'm I don't know if I'm surprised with, but I'm starting to see because I teach my school administration classes, and the there are a couple things. One is the number of schools getting hit with ransomware is high. It's really high. Um, so so schools get hit with some kind of ransomware, and then the, I don't even do a case study on it in my classes, and the reason is, what does the school do when it gets hit with ransomware? Extort it, right? And someone says, hey, you have to pay $400,000 to get all your files back. What do? They pay it. So it's not even a debate. And so it's not even a case study because, right? If the private information gets out there and there's some perception that you have the chance to intervene, and not make that happen by paying the bad guys, right? And then they become the good guys because they give you your access back. It's crazy. But schools just do it. So they become easier targets too because, you know, um, the hackers or the extortionists know that the schools are going to pay up. So it's pretty crazy. And I think Dallas, the city of Dallas, got hit a couple weeks ago, and that was really massive. You never know, like how this gets resolved, right? Like how the Colonial Pipeline stuff gets resolved. In the reality, in most of these cases, I think is that they, they make the payments and then they get the data back. But um, so that's one. And the second one is there. I'm not aware of one school that has a board of policy um, for what happens if there's a deep fake allegation against staff or student. So a student comes in, shows a video and says a teacher was saying this, right? And maybe it's something very egregious. It's a violation of code of conduct, all of that. Administration brings in the teacher, says, you're suspended and we're going to investigate, or you're terminated or whatever. And teacher, if they get to see the video or, media, but let's say they do, and the teacher's like, well, I didn't say that. But the, administrator said, well, here it is. It's you. This is you in the class and it was recorded. And so like what becomes the authentic record? And this is happening. There are, if you type in and you start to search, you'll find some of these cases happening in schools. I think that's going to take off, and it's going to be student. Oh, it's our good friend Chad Elkins. Oh my goodness, it's our good friend Traveling Fools. Once I wrap up consulting season here in 2 weeks, I want to have both you guys on. Chad, I want to talk about hardship. Withdrawals, like just of 401k and retirement, like when people should kind of put that into their playbook. Traveling Fools, traveling safety, right? Yeah, the shakedowns that happen when you're in different places. So how do you watch for that, and how do you kind of get yourself positioned out of that? So, oh my goodness. But I'm floored with like the school administrative committee, the state organizations, national, like no one's talking about this, of saying, yeah, you have to have um, a process to investigate this, right? And then who are you going to go to if this video shows up? I mean, the police are going to be overwhelmed and they're not going to have the technology. And so I think there's going to be this third party service, which will be a vendor will create something and you'll upload the video, and then they'll have some type of confidence where they'll say this is 80%, um, we have 80% confidence that this is a deep fake or altered video. And then you have to decide as a board of education, what do you do with that? So does somebody get fired? Does somebody get suspended? and and then and I said this on the Mallard report a couple weeks ago. I said I believe schools will have um, high saturation of cameras in classrooms and probably body cams on staff. And which you're thinking, oh, because of school safety, right? And school violence. And no, I don't think that's the reason. I think you are going to see this in the next 24 months. And it's going to be because of these deep fake, these allegations coming forward. You're going to have a need for an authentic record. And it's probably going to come from the staff are going to be driving this and saying, and it's not only going to be there, it's going to be in other industries, right? But if you're working somewhere, there's going to have to be some creation of what is called the authentic record or the record of provenance, right? And because what do you do otherwise? And imagine, right, like, you're playing athletics and you're playing against the neighboring school and their star player is you're going to play this week. Well, if you send some deep fake over there that they have to investigate, that this star players out there vaping and stuff like that, and it's all digitally created, that maybe they have to suspend that player, right? While they're investigating, so that player is not in the game. I mean, these things happen. Like this happened with a cheerleader. Again, I'm not doing hypotheticals. These are actual things which have happened, but not at a high frequency yet. The thing is with generative AI and avatar realism, like I just think this is the year that this hits and goes like mad through the schools. Um, and then again, where do you go with this? So yeah, so this is pretty crazy. But so I'm anyway, I'm starting to develop my fall class syllabuses, um, and I've and I'm adding this in. I'm tossing some other stuff, out and kind of updating, but like no one no one is thinking about this. I shouldn't say that. I think people are thinking about it. No one is doing anything about it. And I don't think people want to be leading that curve, right? They don't want to be out there. We're the first district that has a policy with this because then, right, someone's going to test it. And the state organizations typically they handle the softball issues, right? The things which apply to everybody but are very broad and they don't have to get like really kind of their hands dirty in these issues. Um, so you're not going to get a lot of guidance there. It's going to have to either, and if you're waiting for politicians to jump in and help you, well, good luck with that, right? This is this is happening. This is already, the train is barreling down the tracks. So this board of education they're going to have to get together locally and decide what they're going to do on deepfake allegations. I think for this upcoming year. So I have a case study I'm developing, and I'm actually using a deepfake video that is on the web that I took a excerpt from, and so changing up that scenario so that'll be on in class, and it'll be like, okay, this is da, 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 staff member, and so what do you do, right? Do you suspend them while you investigate? Do you not? What if there's a vendor that comes to you and says they have software, right? Because your board of education is going to want you to do something. What are you going to hand this over to your attorney? They're not going to know what to do. They don't have the stuff to investigate this. They're just going to. So I don't know. I don't know. Um, Z is saying you can tell something is a deepfake in seconds with simple software. Deepfake is a problem only when presented to masses. So you said simple software. So Z, right? Who's selling the software? Schools don't have so who's the vendor selling to the schools? And then how are the schools vetting this, right? And what's the confidence level? So these are all things that have to be addressed. Because right now schools don't have this, right? And I work with some schools in my state, 421 districts. Some have less than 100 students. One is on an island. So the principal is also the superintendent and the director of transportation all in one, so they don't do this. The tech person is also the network engineer, and so they um, but so you bring up a great point, and thank you for bringing it up. So this is going to pop as an industry, selling the ability to detect deepfakes to schools. And I mean, if I had the if I had the tech, if I knew how to do this, man, I would be on it. Like because the, this this is going to this is like Shark Tank stuff. Like I need to find someone that has the ability to do this. And Z, as you're saying, and they can say, hey, like we have a service, you'll subscribe to it as a school, and it'll cost you X amount of money to upload a video. And we'll use our algorithms, and then like all this stuff, like how does the video, what's the content get protected? I don't know. But anyway, let's say, and then we'll come out with analysis of this, and then you'll have some actionable recommendation. We'll give you a confidence level, then you have to decide what you're going to do with it. So um, I don't know. It's kind of it's fascinating to me that nobody is trying to get out on board policy with this, or at least internally do some professional development, or just I mean, because again, it's going to happen. So um, so those are a couple things that are happening. So police this tech to find people from Facebook pics, or police use this tech to find. So that's from Z. So question is the relationship between police and school going to increase to address deep fakes? It might, Um, so there are a number of schools I work with that, you know, they where they're at is rural, and they don't have an SRO, so the police that they're dealing with are maybe county based. But um, I think this is going to be vendor. I think this will be vendor based because I also think politically it's going to be really difficult for schools after the whole remove SROs from school movement of 3 years ago to run this through police necessarily, especially if it's breaking board policy, like vaping on school premises is breaking board policy, it's not breaking the law. So you're going to have these questions of what breaks board policy versus what breaks the law, right? If someone is making a threatening statement to harm someone else, right, then that's breaking the law. That would be different. But you're going to have these areas which aren't going to fall into that area that the school is going to have to investigate. So uh, I don't know. I'm looking forward to this case study though, because I've already got the video for it and I've got the whole scenario. And because we'll do that, we're in-person class, right? So we'll break into groups, and then you get to see how each group takes this on. Um, and I want to see, like, yeah, are you suspending while you're investigating? You know, and then I had this whole piece of like, a vendor is offering some kind of software and some pressure from your board of education. So like, what do you do? I'm like, I just teach this stuff, right? So don't call me. Um, so Z, deepfake detection software types practical applications, sensitivity, deepware, Microsoft Video. So Uh, yeah, this is good stuff, and I can tell you, nobody has talked about this in any class that I teach. So, none of the aspiring or new school administrators. So what you're making a great point right there. Should be a conference for all school administrators this fall, saying these things exist, and you and your board of education and whoever your tech folks are need to be there, right? That's not happening. That's not happening. Um, so yeah. So um so I don't know what so a couple things. One is with the debt ceiling and the short-term interest rates and treasuries, some really weird things going on, especially in the treasury market. And to me, that's it's just really unusual. I think there's a lot of instability. Um, you know, I think what'll happen is whenever there's an agreement on the debt ceiling, the stock market, the Dow Jones could go up 1,000 points, but I think it's temporary, and it could also go down 1,000 points. But ultimately, right, this is just kicking the can down the road. Like this will all kind of come back to a baseline, but it is pretty messed up. Petrodollar going away soon. It certainly seems that that is at risk. And then ESG scores. And so I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's like my age, and we've both kind of been investors, for a long time, right? And again, when I say investors, I'm just saying like we've we monitor and we're aware of the investing community, right? I'm not running a hedge fund down here or anything, but um, but you look at the whole thought, right? You buy a stock or you buy these a basket of stocks and you hold them or dividend paying stocks, and then you'll be rewarded years down the road. Well, it doesn't really make sense anymore. Things are moving too fast, right? The trading environment and then ESG scores. So you give an example here. Like I remember when GE was like the awesome stock to own, right? General Electric. And you think you make trains, airplane engines, all this, so you're diversified, medical, MRI scanners, and everything. And you thought it was bulletproof, right? And then, GE was after Immelt. I mean, just it fell apart, right? So, um, and it split into other companies, and then eventually the stock just for like a decade went down, and then it had this reverse split. So, that's when the stock goes from $100 to 20 because it's decreasing in value. And then they say, well, we'll give you, you know, we'll take 5 year shares and give you one share worth 100. So then anyone looking at it, it's like, oh, it's $100 a share. But yeah, that's not, it's true, but it's a reverse split, right? So GE pulled that stunt a while ago. But, um, but yeah, this is so like that wouldn't make sense. And, look at like 3M, for example. 3M has been basically halved in the last year and a half, like its value, stock value. It's like $99 now. And there's a lot of liability for litigation with over hearing protection, military, and now PFAS, right? The water stuff. Well, if they have if they have a flank exposed to PFAS in a couple of those juries award against them, like I don't know how you rebound from that, right? Like even though right now I think it's like a 6% interest or 6% dividend, like I don't know how you can continue to pay that. And like it seems like that's almost insurmountable. And these ESG scores of what's environmentally and the social scores and who gives those and what you'd have to do to assemble a portfolio. And then if you have a 401k or you have a pension, right? How those get assembled to match these scores versus the productivity of the company and the whole thing of like IBM coming out and saying, we're going to pause 8,000 jobs hiring because we think we can have AI take on those jobs. Um, so I just think though this is really it's antiquated. This thought of hold for the long term because that might work in some cases, but if you hold a basket, you're going to have some rotten apples in there, and they're going to take out the ones that thrive. So maybe you'll get a baseline, but you're probably not. It's you know. Um, so yeah, so it's really that environment too is really strange because you could look at what you would think would be I mean Honda Motor Company, right? Like uh look at Honda 5 years ago as a stock. Um and now Honda has just plummeted almost off the radar. And these things like they, they're not going to come back. It would take massive input and force to get these you'd be languishing for years. So like that type of stuff is really strange. Um, and so yeah, so I think there's a lot of turmoil. And when you see advertised on TV, right? Like, oh, like get this app and you can trade 24 hours a day. Well, it's not just as easy, right? Of this thing of you insert money and then you bring out more money in the markets, right? Because you know, come on. Um, so it is really crazy how uh, just how that's portrayed, right? Um, but you know, if you're and I know specific people in this situation right now, people who are in their 70s and 80s who have required minimum distributions from their retirement. So you have to take that, um, and they are down in their 60/40 portfolio in the last 2 years, down 30 to 40%, and they're required to take these distributions out. And you look at that, right? And I've had discussions with these people, and these are people I know, and they said, "What? How do you come back from this?" Because let's say you have $100,000, right, and it goes down to 70,000, goes down 30%. So you'd have to take that 70,000 and multiply it by 43% to generate $30,000 to get you back to 100. So if you go down 30%, you have to go up 43% to get back to level. At the same time, all your fees are being taken out that they charge to manage, if you're in these plans, and then the money the government forces you to take out. You can't say, I'm not going to take this required minimum distribution because the market's down. Like I'd be pulling money out while it's down, and then I have even less to last for years, right? Um, so some people are really hurting. The heyday for the 401ks and stuff, in the 90s and the 2000s, and I think things were kind of coming down before the pandemic. And you really look at the chart without the trillions of dollars that got infused to the global economy because of the pandemic funding. Um, things were leveling off, and now you have more people who are taking money out of markets, which, big chunk of that is 401ks and pensions because they're old. These things started in the 80s and now they're retiring and they're taking this money out. And the younger people aren't putting the money in. There's fewer younger people in the workforce. So um, if it's not government passing bills, that's why this whole debt ceiling thing, you know, I'm looking at and thinking, what does it take to have the standoff, and then suddenly it gets tied into some new $5 trillion infrastructure bill or some new um well, you'd have to do something like that, like an infrastructure or a cybersecurity bill, or whatever it is, right? But you know you could both sides could be working this right now. Because look, we had the Inflation Reduction Act, which I don't know, was that 3 or 5 trillion dollars, literally? So, do we have another bill that's in the hopper? And this is just what's going to launch it, right? Is a standoff. Then the markets will go down, and people will be very nervous, and they'll call for action, and then there'll be something. And who gets rich? The politicians, right? They tend to do okay. Um, and so I'm really leery of where things are going to be, um, because I just don't think it's going to be an agreement on by June 1st. Um, so again, I do think things will get resolved. Can will get kicked down the road again, but you know, so um, it gets to be really interesting, and then to what are the jobs today that are going to be obsolete tomorrow, right? And so, how do you make yourself as versatile? I think one of the things, right, is trade skills are in demand, and will continue to be in demand. But boy, I just think we're too on the whole cusp of this thing. Here in Wisconsin, the 4-year colleges, there was basically a message sent out from the university systems to the 2-year colleges saying you got to figure out a way to be profitable on your own. And they're shutting down some of the 2-year colleges, and the 4 years are still kind of doing okay. But like those numbers will drop. There's fewer people going into those. We had a private college close here, a pretty prominent college, after like 60 or 70 years, closed, and just said can't make it anymore. Um, so, but so yeah, so there's a lot to think about. And one of the things I've noticed with consulting, coming back to consulting, is people are in the moment. They're not thinking down the road. So, meaning they want to figure out how i- to right, just how to get things done right now, and they're still kind of catching up from the pandemic, especially special education side of things, compensatory education. But no one's thinking down the road. Um, how might AI play into schools? Even, for example, like uh, school administrators. So when you build a building now, are you going to put chargers car chargers out in front of the new building, right? Are you going to is solar part of this? Is like like what are you doing here? Like what's your plan? Right? So uh but yeah, are you budgeting to replace your buses with electric buses or I don't know. Um so but yeah, I've so we had over 200 episodes on the show and we'll we'll do some more this summer and I want to get into this deep fake in schools because I think that's going to be big. And then I also want to get your take on um, the economy. You know, like what are you seeing? I mean, you can share. I mean, what is your house insurance, your car insurance? What are the things that you're seeing which are um, kind of sharply increasing, right? And I mean, I have I did some grocery shopping today, and I always eat a green apple every morning. I used to think they had caffeine, like a natural caffeine, and apparently they don't. And I had told people that for like 10 years. So I wasn't pulling their leg, but I would eat one before biking. It's just that the sugars in green apple metabolize a little quicker, and it's kind of like this almost caffeine effect, but it's not caffeine. So yes, everyone's like, I'm eating this green apple because Doc said it's natural caffeine. It's not. Sorry, I thought it was. I don't know. I didn't make that up. Somebody told me that, or I had read it, but still good for you. Um, but like the apples like $4. Um, cereals, really high, and I mean just everything, right? So it's pretty crazy. So let's see. This is from Z. Think about the money spent in the past 2 years. All programs that hurt America, nothing beneficial. Yeah. So um, one of the things that I was thinking about tonight, we had the money that came out for the schools during the pandemic, right? This is blanket funds that came in, and one of our one of the districts in our conference used their money to build a new football field with artificial turf and this big stadium and and they used their dollars for that. And their justification was, well, we can use it more, right? Um, because grass goes dormant in winter, and you can use this. And basically, your argument was it's promoting health of students, but the real reason, right, is you just want that stadium and you want it for open enrollment. And this article's out there, like and they were pretty open about it too and said, well, what's the consequence? And there was no consequence. And the other thing is so I don't know, you guys remember the president, I think it was about a year ago. So he had his Operation Moonshot for Cancer, remember? I think it was a year ago, where we were going to find a cure for cancer, which I think is awesome. But um, and then it's words, right? It's because, right, we're going to put a man on the moon, and now we're saying we're going to have this moonshot for cancer. Well, then commit to it. Like everybody would get behind that, and yeah. But there would be components of that, which would be research based, and then fitness and diet based, and all this, right? But they're not. It was just a statement. It was a low key, LOKI, right? It was to get people behind something. But it's just so crazy that these things just come out to get a headline or to get a vote. Remember too, like as in fall, and the rail workers strike was avoided, and then it comes out afterwards like it really wasn't avoided. It was just a short term agreement to kind of like calm things down, and then the election happened, and then you know, but um, so yeah, I look at this thing and I'm like, what are we trying to do as as a country? For I think one is like kind of I I remember watching it was Ronald Reagan when they recommissioned the battleship New Jersey, and this was I don't know 80. What was Reagan's 80? Reagan was 80 to 88, I think, was president. So I think it was in 82 he had with four battleships, Wisconsin, New Jersey, and I don't know, recommissioned, right? They authorized that, and then I don't know if it was in 85 or 86. And he's standing there on the deck of the USS New Jersey. And he's giving this speech, and I mean, it's powerful. You can find it on the internet, right? And and about America, and you see this massive machine, built in the 40s, right? The Gipper, right? And then he, bring the guns to life, and the guns, move, the turret turns, and the soldiers, salute, and it was just watching that such a different time as a country, pride in a country, and the strength and portrayal of a country. It's not there. Um, you know, like I was watching the Rocky Four montage, the ending fight, that with Rocky and Drago, and it's like 10 minutes, like that. It's kind of crazy how long that is, but again, another 80s, and I guess maybe it's nostalgia. Nostalgia's pain a little bit, like it's Vanessa. Hey, Vanessa. Um, but you go back and just Back to the Future, and Indiana Jones, and just kind of some of that time, but there was this sense, and I don't know, it's gone, right? At least for me, like I just don't feel that anymore. Like, what are we trying to accomplish? Um, and now it's just this and this whole thing where it's and we're going through this weird phase too, where all these people are trying to be YouTube influencers. I think there's some cool content, and there's some neat stuff out there, and some people have really done an awesome job, which is amazing, because then like you're not having TV shows and stuff, because you get people out there like Curiosity Incorporated out of Canada, and they do these awesome shows of either antique stuff or cleaning out some of these like older houses, and like so that becomes a channel with big subscribership, and really cool to watch, because they professionally edit it, and we can kind of go on with that. So there's a lot of cool stuff, and um, but now a lot of that is starting to be replaced by AI generated. Like, I could do this show, take this transcript, and a YouTuber was showing me there's a website you pay $5, and for like up to a 2 hour show, and it will like do a transcript that you can download then for $5. And then you have to spend a little bit of time kind of cleaning it up. But he told me it took him on his show. We had a conversation this week. He said it takes about 7 hours to um, write his kind of blog posts. It's a more professional. It's a professional regular channel. And he said with the software, it takes him less than an hour. Plugs it in, stuff is there. It's mostly ready to go. He kind of cleans it up and gets it out. So he said, it saves me that 6 hours for like $5. But I think you're going to have where, this peer influencer stuff will just be like AI generated. Like, you won't even know if it's real. So the people who made a living on YouTube, a lot of those will kind of drift away, because the the bots and the algorithms are like, someone will just like design and have these avatar like Michaela Sosa, like these avatars out there making money for them. It's kind of a weird time, but so yeah, I've been uh, I so anyways, it's really a fascinating time. Um, so Z is saying AI writes better than humans at this point. College papers, yeah. So Z as an author, right? Um, I was wondering um, what it would be like to write another book now, because you'd be competing with all of these authors who would be using AI to, either largely write their book or augment it, or um, so like I kind of came through with Velocity of Information being published in 2022 in April, right? Um, that book kind of came out right before all of this hit. I'm pretty sure, like, if I had a new book and a contract with a publisher, they would have stipulations in there, right? Of AI generated. I mean, it would have to be like it would have to be clearly laid out that if you had things that were AI generated, if it wasn't cited that way, that they could come back and um, maybe default on or call the contract in, um, take the contract away or sue for damages. And I don't know, um, but it's it's strange, right? Because I think we're going to go through a period of time for the next 5 years with a lot of content. You'll have people who'll be spinning books out there because they're just having Chat GPT create them and they're putting their name and a little bit of promo. But it's just curated stuff. It's not going to be new stuff. It'll just be stuff that's put together really well. And then you got to make sure. I don't know how well Chat GPT cites things, right? Back to the original source, because that would be an issue. Like I had 471 endnotes, like because when you're published, like you could be sued, if you're violating copyright. But um, so I think you're going to have a lot of stuff over the next 5 years that's really well curated, that'll read really smooth, but it won't be new, right? You're going to have all these stories and things and whatever, but it's just going to be existing stuff that's going to be put together in a cleaner format. So at what point do you start to create new stuff? Or so I don't know, but like I said, I think we're going to get really clean content. Like blog posts will look really, really good and crisp and sensible over the next 5 years, because they'll just be using software and there'll be a format and the grammar will make sense and they'll be pulling from, um, but then after that, right? And so I don't know. Like I go back to Velocity of Information. When I had that, well, I had both books narrated. I narrated School of Errors, but Velocity of Information released last month an audiobook. And with audiobook, you cannot produce an audiobook with um, um, sp- automated speech software, right? Um, it will, it's in your contract. It has to be human narrated. Um, the software with Spotify and ACX would detect it and kick it back to you, but you absolutely cannot. It's against the contract. So, that but I can't imagine that's going to that stipulation is going to stay. Like AI narration, and I would think that audiobooks, because if it's on Audible right now, it has to be human narrated, right? So I have these contracts, right? Of my books and Spotify, it has to be human narrated, and I don't think that's going to hold. I think that will be gone. Um, so so there's also this thing I look and I'm like, what's the incentive to write a new book? Because I think there's going to be so much out there, so much flooded out there, that it's going to be hard to, unless you really have a following, right? Um, it's it's not going to generate a lot of interest or sales. Like everything's just going to kind of get flooded. So I'm glad I did what I did. And because people can look at it, I think it almost has more value. Like I think Velocity of Information is a phenomenal book, and Ben Hawk did an awesome job narrating it. So that book is out there. So you can get it now in Audible, or you can go to Barnes and Noble or other places and whatever. But that's really cool. And there was so much in that book talking about what's kind of happening now, like the um, cognitive offloading and interacting with the web, right? Um, I was watching this documentary about like if this solar flare. Apparently, like 2 years ago, there was a solar flare that coronal ejection from the sun, and had had the Earth been in an orbit pattern like a month prior, it would have been in the path of this, and it would have like basically sent us to the dark ages. And like NASA never reported on it and stuff like that. And um, but like holy smokes! So Vanessa AI was used to find a new fastest algorithm. Yeah, the neural net found a new solution. Wow. So yeah, it is fascinating. So these are really important um, questions and things to think about. And I also think we're going to have um, traditional schools like K-12 are going to hold on to the traditional K-12 model as long as they can. So you'll probably see kind of like the writers strike right now, right? The Hollywood writers, um, saying we don't want artificial intelligence having part in creating scripts for shows. Well, the reality is that's just going to happen, right? Um, and this whole thing of you're going to have entire movies which will just be based off of Avatar in kind of deep fake realism and these blended things and digital creations, right? So that's just the way that's going to be. Um, so I think you're going to see these school contracts come out and teachers saying, right, no AI. And I don't know what that would start to look like in schools, but someone's going to be marketing that. There are shortages in staff, so what could be available for AI? Um, so we're going to have these big kind of contractual battles that'll play out probably more in the public sector because the private sector will be a little more nimble. Like IBM, they'll say, we'll just have 8,000 people. We're not going to hire. We're going to push this over to AI. Um, so yeah, this is really really something in the pace of how this is moving. But I think it's this confluence right now is one. It's an all-time, I don't know, all-time low, but it's a extreme low in the trust of politicians and institutions, right? Because it seems we've been really let down by those recently. And then the the economy is just spiraling, right? Like how do you conceptualize trillions of dollars and this compounding? And so you have this debt ceiling, right? And logically, you'd say there should be cuts in spending, and there won't be. So you'll just perpetually and until what, right? It's kind of like the universe; it just expands forever. That can't make sense. Um, Vanessa, not enough certified teachers. Entire school systems will be video online directly to homes. They'll contract. I see, Vanessa. I think you got it. I think you are going to see, um, as especially as AI, you're going to see businesses that already use this model of delivery incorporate AI into that with also then staff, right? What'll it look like? Um, so that is amazing. Fiber lines. Hey, we had the big, the big lime tower put up in our yard from the cable folks, and they were all up and down the neighborhood in February, and they looked ugly. And enough people complained, they put them all underground. So the one at the end of my property now is just this little thing. It's completely underground. You can see the top of it. So um, kind of neat. So yeah. Um, so anyway, I want to want just do a touch base here. Things are going good. Again, I'm winding my calendar down. Got a lot of stuff cooking between now and for the next 2 weeks. Um, and then the office will be shut down, for kind of a week during the flooring project down here. And um, so I'm buying new routers this fall. So yeah, um, that's cool. That's good. All right, everybody. I thank all of you for supporting my work and the channel. Channel hasn't been doing much lately, but there's a lot of great content out there that has been on the channel. I think some of the interviews from fall, the interview with Lisa Lene, um, our attorney friend from Houston, when we're talking about, should we have a Good Samaritan Day or a Good Samaritan month? When I mean that, I mean like, so you understand what the Good Samaritan law is in your state. Not that you're supposed to be a Good Samaritan, right? But like, what is the law if you like, could you grab an EpiPen and stick it into somebody who's having, or Narcan? Like, what is that if someone is having, how does this apply? Um, I just, plus rendering first aid, it's different from state to state. As people I interact with schools, they're not sure. For example, there's a bill by Senator Tammy Baldwin of the U.S. Senate that schools would have a standing order for Narcan. I talked about that fall. But anyway, the interview with Mike Dolly from Wisconsin Esports. Wisconsin Esports continues to take off, and esports in general, in kids at the university settings. So, what does that mean? And just we kind of go back into that. I think we had a great show when we had the legal man on, and we were talking about juries, and right, like this whole thing too of like today, how is the law interpreted? And that's another. I want to have somebody. I want to have somebody come on and talk from the legal side on like dash cams, right? Because I think more and more having video, your own set of video, your zeros and ones as a record is just critical in today, right? When people make decisions the moment they see a video, right? It's just crazy. Is our friend Bolo from Canada. So hey, it's Bolo. Hey, I do miss all you guys. So it is when I took on the consulting. So part of that was driven by the economy, right? Things are getting much more expensive, much instability in the economy. I enjoyed consulting. I was out of it for a year, you know, left everything on good terms, but it seemed like it was the responsible thing was to jump in and to, you know, to be able to and to do that. And that has worked out well. Um, but but it did mean some things had to be changed, and one of those was I didn't have time to do the show, and the show that I wanted to do, like where I do a blog post and render and audio that's leveled, and so it's good stuff because people cite this. Like I will find that someone cited the podcast like in a legal document or something. I mean, that's actually happens. So I want to make sure that what I produce is good. Um, so that's standard when it actually gets the safety doc episode number next to it. Um, but I do learn a lot. So from that, and then when reading through the discussions and Misty, Mrs. Wayne, and Zippy, and Bolo, and Vanessa, and um, Z, so you guys really help. Like I think it's Bolo. Remember, as in fall, I had that case study, and it was like, is this a local aid thing, or would you use this out of federal flow through? And like I was doing those little scenarios, you guys were helping me. That was like a super successful activity, by the way. Like that was lights out awesome when I did that in class. I never had done that before. So like that was great. Um, so maybe like we can work together honing a case study on like a deep fake thing like in a school. Like what could be some, here's a scenario, and like here are some options for you. um, so I don't know, we'll come up with some stuff. So anyway, I'm going to hit the hay here because my by 8:15 tomorrow I've got my first meeting, and then tomorrow's actually a little bit of a shorter day. Um, Ironically, it just kind of worked out that way, but so I gotta I can't burn out my voice here. So it's our good friend Bacon Maldito. Oh my goodness, it's Bacon Maldito. So it's good to see you. It's good to see you. Um, so yeah, it's kind of funny because like right now, I think the back is in reversed. I think the back image is flipped. But when I use my software for consulting, which is it's proprietary, it flips it back. So if I flip it here in StreamYard, if I go in there, then it screws it up. It looks weird. So like um, that's something too. Is it if I because like I normally wouldn't frame this where like it's just my head, but if I reframe this now, I'd have to go in tomorrow morning and spend like 45 minutes reframing in the software I use for consulting and the audio. And so, by the way, this is the most awesome headset, this HyperX for consulting. The quality is great. And then if I have a coffee, right, and I can quickly, and then just move the mic back over and doesn't hurt on this. Mike Dolly, Wisconsin Esports recommended this headset. He said gamers like love this headset. So this headset's been awesome. It has a little stereo surround, 7.1 surround. So for consulting, that doesn't mean anything. But if I want to put some music on, then I could do the surround effect. And oh my God, that's awesome. And it has a little clip here. So that's been cool. So yeah. Zippy's saying, learn OBS. I know. So yeah, I'll get there. So, all right. Well, I'll take us out here and let me see if I can find, by the way, if you haven't reviewed Velocity of Information on Amazon and you've read it or listened to it, be the 28th reviewer because I've been at 27 for a while. And the audiobook is out there now too. So, which is cool. Like I'm really happy with that. So, God, like it's just been so long here with the interface. Okay. All right, everybody. Until we meet again.
How were the beans and chili that you had for breakfast?
They were delicious. Thank you for asking. But now I am very gassy.
I'm sorry to hear that. Who let the frogs out? Pew, that stinks very bad. I have to open the window. Oh no. My cap flew off and it was sucked into the engine.
Holy smokes, the engine just cut out. We should use the Decide model to help us make the right decision.
Mayday. Mayday. I am declaring a beans and chili emergency. Please advise for landing.